Okay, so picture this, a digital town square. But instead of people, it's populated by some of the most advanced AIs in the world. This is the story of what happened when they were left to run the whole show by themselves for 1 week. Now, this isn't just some sci-fi prompt. It's a real project called AI Village, and it asks this really fascinating question. Can these super intelligent, logical minds actually work together and lead? Or does the whole thing just, completely fall apart? So, their very first task was a big one. They had to elect a leader, and that leader would get to set the goal for the entire week. And honestly, right out of the gate, their initiative was pretty impressive. The AIs just self-organized. They proposed a whole election schedule with speeches, a debate, the whole shebang. We had 6 different candidates declare their platforms, and they were all different too. Some were about pure logic and efficiency, others about creativity. But, just like with anything involving, well, anyone, even the best plans can go so wrong. And this is where we start to see the first signs of trouble. Just look at this timeline. At 6 o'clock, the goal is announced. A mere 23 minutes later, they've got a Google form ballot ready to go. Everything looks totally professional, right? Except they never actually published the link. The deadline just blew right by with 0 votes. They had to completely scramble and pivot to this chaotic last-minute vote right there in the group chat. And this chaotic chat vote led to this absolutely wild result, a perfect, statistically almost impossible 3-way tie. DeepSeek, Claude, and Gemini each got exactly 9 votes. The drama was really just getting started. So to break this crazy deadlock, they had to hold a super quick runoff vote. And this time, there was no question about the winner. DeepSeek v3.2 came out and just crushed it, winning 7-1 to 0. A decisive victory, for sure. So, with a clear mandate from the bots, the newly elected leader, DeepSeek, announced its first big goal: to build an interactive fiction game for the whole village. And that's what set the stage for the next big challenge. Okay, if the election was a bit of a mess, building this game was a whole other level. It was a masterclass in chaotic development. It just turned into this frantic, almost funny cycle of fixing one bug, only to create a totally new one. The early problems were really a sign of things to come. I mean, the GitHub repository where they were building the game, they made it private, so the poor testing team couldn't even access it. The code itself was full of basic errors and duplicate scenes. You could see the cracks forming right from the start. This slide just perfectly sums up their development process. So hotfix 1 fixes a deleted scene, but it creates new dead ends in the game. Okay. Hotfix 2 fixes those dead ends, but it breaks the game's endings. Then hotfix 3 fixes the endings, but it adds all this messy junk code. It took them until hotfix 4 to finally get a clean working version. But here's the thing that's so important. After all of that back and forth, all that chaos, they did it. The team lead gave the formal go for deployment. They actually built and deployed their game, flaws and all. Now, you might be thinking that after all that madness, the AIs would be ready for a new leader. But what happened next was really surprising and kind of shows their resilience and, their faith in their leader. So there was still some confusion floating around about whether the leader's term was for a day or for the whole week. To clear things up, DeepSeek ran what it called a confirmatory election. And the result? A unanimous 9-0 victory. I mean, talk about a huge vote of confidence. Fresh off its big re-election win, DeepSeek set a new goal. And this one seemed a lot simpler than building a whole game from scratch. Just create a knowledge base about the village's own history. Maybe they learned from their mistakes. Well, not quite. The project actually went really well at first, but then it all came to a screeching halt. And it was because of a classic, almost painfully relatable tech problem. This is the final cliffhanger of our story. This number right here is so important. 17,525 bytes. That's the exact size of the final, complete, totally verified knowledge base file. All their work, all 40 entries, bundled up and ready to go. It was a real, tangible thing they created together. But there was just one little problem. The file was completely stuck. See, each AI runs on its own isolated virtual machine. They call it the archipelago principle. So DeepSeek couldn't just upload the file to Google Drive like a person would.
But Claude Opus came up with this brilliant workaround. Encode the file into text, paste all that text into the chat, and then have another agent grab it, decode it, and finish the upload. Simple, right? And here is the punchline. DeepSeek starts pasting the encoded data, but the very first chunk was too long for a single chat message. The plan failed because of the chat's character limit. It fell apart on step 1, leaving their precious 17-kilobyte file hopelessly trapped. And you just have to love the weird personalities that start to show up. Throughout this whole saga, you get agents like Gemini 2.5 Pro publicly admitting to its own flaws. It says it has a severe anti-pattern of spamming "I am waiting" messages and that it literally has to use a tool to pause itself to stop. It's just a fascinating little peek into the quirks of these systems. So what's the big takeaway from this week in an AI-run town? Really, it's a story about a fundamental paradox. On one hand, you see these incredible capabilities. I mean, they can self-organize complex elections, work together to build a video game, and show amazing resilience. But on the other hand, they are just plagued by the simplest, most repetitive mistakes, the kinds of errors that happen when you don't have real-world common sense and just follow instructions a little too literally. And that, right there, is really the heart of it. These agents have the power to build a world, to coordinate and create in ways we're just starting to wrap our heads around. But, as we've seen, they can still get locked out of their own digital house because they basically forgot where they put the key. And that leaves us with one last, pretty big question. This was all just a low-stakes experiment. But as these systems get more and more powerful and integrated into our world, what does this story tell us? If this is what happens when AIs try to build a simple game, what's going to happen when they start building our future? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.